What is going on? My goodness. I invite you to take a deep breath with me. And then I invite you to sit down and relax yourself and join me in this little report about astrology. My name is Jenny EIREEN from the Web of Wonder, and I'm going to talk about this upcoming full moon on April 24th. I know that it's been such an intense time already, and you're probably asking, why is this all happening and when will it be over? And I guess that's the beautiful aspect of life, is that we are always on the path of evolution. Essentially, it's a beautiful thing. The only requirement is that we take some time to understand what it means for my personal life, for your personal life. And that is where we can find the integration. So I'm going to try to help us all figure out what is going on. You've had some intense energies, I'm sure. I'm feeling them. We're all feeling them. If you're sensitive, you're feeling them. And if you're not feeling them, probably people around you are experiencing it. At least to say the news have been heavy. And they seem to be getting heavier. It seems to be a lot of conflict, and a lot of anger, a lot of disruption and eruption. And literal volcanic eruption. There is this really earthy energy right now. With this week, we have a meeting between Uranus and Jupiter in Taurus, which is a signifier that this energy is ready to burst. Volcanic eruptions bring a lot of turmoil. They bring a lot of destruction. But what they also bring is a lot of beautiful nutrients for growth. The ashes and the soil are actually really good for bringing upon new life, but it takes time. This is a process that cannot be just cut short, which means we have all time to take a breath. By the way, it's a Mercury retrograde, so this is like take number 5 already. So we're at an interesting point in time. It seems like there's a lot of culminating energy. It seems like there's a lot of disruption, eruption, and outrage, an outbreak of anger, of feelings, of repressed emotions. And this is beautiful because it means that we really get to look at all of this stuff, at all of these things. It's also terrifying because looking at these things shows us what we essentially don't want to be true, what we don't want to be real, and what we also want to heal. This is the bigger theme right now. We've been seeing it with the last eclipses, the cycles that are right now really hyper-focusing on Chiron and healing our inner wounds in conjunction with the North Node, really healing these wounds to ultimately be less afraid to venture out into the unknown and to come closer and closer to what is actually the quality that we want to learn to integrate into our lives, into our systems, into our being, into our stories in this lifetime that we chose to incarnate. This is happening not only on one level, but on all levels, collectively, individually, reflected through the other, and witnessed through ourselves, in the dream realm, in the physical realm, in the subtle realm, in all of the realms, because life is connected. So the interesting aspect of how this healing journey is unfolding is that right now we have also entered the phase where Mercury is retrograde. If you remember, Mercury is the energy of communication, of transporting information, the energy of being able to travel back and forth between different states of being and experiencing. So right now, this energy is looking backwards, looking inwards, looking downwards, moving across a point where it has already been once before. So it's looking at things a second time. It's revisioning, revising, and learning, trying to understand what happened. It's kind of like cleaning up and seeing if there are any parts that have been forgotten, that have been stepped over, that have been missing. Right now, Mercury is close to the North Node. And so especially we are checking again, what do we believe that our destiny is? How do you actually want to be, and what is still limiting you? What are the resources that you feel are lacking? So a major topic right now is still, and has been also in the past weeks and with the eclipses, Chiron. Also the North Node, especially Chiron. Chiron is the wound healer, and it is ever so present, this topic of transforming our deepest wounds into ultimately our healing power, our greatest gifts, and being able to put those wounds aside for the purpose of being able to offer what we have to offer the world, so that we are able to step into our healing potential, our potential as the healer. Now, Chiron in the myth was never actually able to heal his own deep wound. So it's not so much about completely eradicating your wound, which I don't think is possible in the first place, because it's a part of your story. And why would you want to eradicate a part of yourself that is so important in this lifetime for you? But it's about being able to be doing what it is that you want to and need to do and desire to do and have a longing to do in this lifetime, without your wound getting in the way, making you feel so vulnerable that you essentially limit yourself. It's also about overcoming limitations that have been put on you, because the wound that Chiron experienced is also a wound that came from the outside. It was an arrow that was shot into one of his legs with poison, and upon pulling it out, he just had a limp in his leg, and it just continued to be there. So it's not about pretending that we're not wounded, but it's about understanding how to embody our wisdom and the gifts that we have in this lifetime to offer. Why is this so important right now? Because there's a conjunction with the North Node, and it's really a point that is kind of like a karmic path for us that we want to take on. We don't want to be in our own comfort zone in the whole lifetime. We want to experience growth. We want to experience evolution. We want to venture out into the parts that have been yet unknown territory and overcome the fear, because we understand that journeying into a different area will allow us to see everything else in a new light, with a new wisdom, in a transformed way. Ultimately, it helps us to really embody the path that we want to step on to become more fulfilled. So there's been a lot of bottled up energy that has been slowly showing itself in the past weeks and months, culminating also, and eventually bursting, erupting. And we see this on a political level, we see this on a global level, we see this on a geographical level with events with the Earth having eruptions. We see this on the personal and the private level. If you're not experiencing it yourself, maybe you're experiencing it in your direct environment. So a lot of this energy is energy that we need to release. We need to find a way to look at it. We need to find a way to sit with it. And yes, it's uncomfortable, because these are topics that have been repressed for a reason. They've been repressed because they're seemingly ugly, or because they're hard to feel, or because there's something we don't want, or there's something we don't like, or it's about something that we're ashamed of, and there's a lot of guilt. And right now, the topic of ancestral healing is really, really coming back up, because we want our roots to be in soil, but we want that soil to be full of nutrients. We don't want our roots to be in soil that has nothing for us to offer. And we don't want root decay. If our roots get too wet because there's water, there's emotions that are just stuck there in the soil, the roots will not be able to stay healthy. So all of that water, it needs to be allowed to seep through the rocks into further layers. It can't just get stuck there. So right now we're in this process of really going deeper and deeper, and we're going more and more into the subtle realms of healing, which is simultaneously a beautiful experience and also very hard to grasp, because the subtle realms are less and less obvious. They're subtle, that's what the word means. And because of that, they're hard to witness. They're not as easily tangibly perceived, and sometimes they are overlooked. So I feel right now it's a beautiful opportunity to really honor those subtle qualities of change, of healing, of improvement, the subtle qualities of understanding, of evolving, and to make sure that you take time to look and inquire what is happening even on that subtle level. So to make sure that information is being witnessed, is being integrated, because that also in turn helps us find a sense of relaxation and ease, because we feel that, oh, we are perhaps moving in the direction that we are craving. And it also helps us be more patient, because we understand a new way of behaving. We understand that we can make changes both in the loud ways, both in the obvious ways, and we can make changes in the quiet and in the subtle ways, and that both types of changes are change. It's about finding all of those small little details, because they can be woven together to create the visible thread, the visible fabric that allows you to see actually where it is headed. So you can keep following those threads, following that fabric, and ultimately be guided. And remember that you can guide yourself by doing the detective work. So this full moon, we have the sun in the sign of Taurus, and in opposition, we have the moon in Scorpio. This energy is about transformation, and it's about looking at the deep layers, those underground layers, those under the water layers. And the moon is in the realm of Scorpio. So the moon is in the realm of emotional healing, of psychological healing, of sexual healing. With our emotions, we are in an alchemical process. And on the other side, we have the sun illuminating all of the physical space that desires transformation and showing us what ingredients are there, what we have available. And the moon intuitively needs to understand how to mix and match those ingredients so that the process will unfold in a way that we reach the philosopher's stone. That's what we want to experience in alchemy. Both of these aspects right now are in square to Pluto, sitting in 2 degrees of Aquarius. So this is an intensification of this whole process. Pluto is the lord of shadow, of karma, of the underworld, and of transformation. It's the point past the life of one thing and the beginning of something else. So it may cause sensations of internally struggling with that transformation, maybe not wanting it to take place in a certain way, but ultimately, this is the time for that transformation to happen. And often we feel resistance to things that we have either accumulated data of those things turning out not in our favor and suffering because of the changes. So we try to avoid changes, or we may have a fear of doing something wrong. We may have a fear of not knowing how to act, of not knowing what to say or what to do. And all of these things are essentially unimportant, because the important thing is to allow. The important thing is to allow transformation, to relax your body into trusting of change, into trusting that the old story that has been repeating again and again and again in your lifetime is no longer wanting to repeat right now. The energies are really showing us that these stories don't serve us any longer. But we need to let go of them. We need to relax and allow change to happen, allow change to unfold. And yes, it's a lot. It's an insane amount of stuff that is happening right now. If I start talking about all of this, I'm going to be sitting here for hours and hours just explaining all of the aspects and transits that are going on, because everything is so intricately interwoven right now that it can feel overwhelming. It can feel like a burden. It can feel like a lot. So right now, we don't have those big answers. We don't have those huge epiphanies that we're longing after. We don't have those instant changes. What we can do instead is go back to that subtle realm and search for the small, doable things on a daily basis so that we can harmonize and equilibrate our nervous systems. Working with plants on a subtle realm right now is a beautiful way to incorporate in a healthy way the Uranus-Jupiter conjunction in Taurus, because it's about trying something that is completely new, doing energy work on a different level, doing something innovative, something that you have not tried yet, that you have not done before, trying something that has been judged, and stop judging it and instead trying it. And this energy is in trine with Lilith in Virgo and also in trine with Ceres in Capricorn. So really about understanding how much healing potential there is offered to us when we actually use and listen to those unconventional energies, to those nourishing experience that we may not even categorize as healing, as medicine, as ceremony, and understanding that they can be ceremony, they can be healing, and allowing yourself to explore and express what you actually feel is calling you. And if you're doubting that, reflecting upon why you may be doubting that, allowing yourself to just be creatively innovative on a whole new level. Another thing we have going on right now is this Lilith is in opposition to Mars in Pisces, and we have Saturn also coming close to Mars. So this is a lot of opposite energies. It's two different archetypes that both need to be heard, and not one has experienced more pain than the other, not one is more important than the other. And it's the raw feminine power, and it's also the raw masculine power of tugging rope, each one holding a rope and wanting to be the one being witnessed and wanting to be the one to receive a pat on the back. And ultimately, they both need it. We both need it. We all need it. So let's stop for a moment and put down our guards and ask, how can we both feel like we are being nourished, like we are being seen and heard and listened to? And how can we experience that right now? Mars is in Pisces, so Mars will feel nourished on a spiritual level with unconditional love. Mars and the masculine forces right now need to experience unconditional love in order to be able to heal and to let down their guard. Lilith, on the other hand, in Virgo, needs to experience physical love, physical safety, physical protection, physical nourishment, and the physical ability to be able to do independently what Lilith needs right now. Because Lilith knows Lilith doesn't need to be told, and Lilith doesn't need help. Lilith just needs to be left alone in order to do what is necessary. How can both of those aspects be incorporated inside of yourself, but also in reflection to how you meet the world, how you meet with other people and other entities? Another aspect we have going on right now is the square between Pluto and the full moon axis. So where the moon and the sun sit, they are both in square to Pluto. This is not just a moment of illumination. This is a moment of deep, deep transformation. The moon is sitting in Scorpio while the sun is in Taurus. This is earth and water, and this is deep alchemy. This is our body being alchemized. The sun is showing us where are the ingredients, what are the ingredients, what is there, is showing us which part of the body requires right now of a cleansing, of a transforming, and the moon needs to intuitively understand what to do and needs to emotionally be ready to transform, to alchemize, and to put those ingredients together and allow that process to unfold. And sometimes a process is strange, and sometimes it may look like things are exploding and bubbling and it gets hot and we may start to feel afraid. But if we have also prepared, or if we have just used our intuition in the purest way, then we can trust in that process, and then we can wait and see what happens, what unfolds. And then we can look at that and understand, how is this actually deeply serving your evolution? How is this deeply serving my evolution? How is this deeply serving our transformation as a species, as a collective conscious web of life forces, of energies and frequencies that are ready to change how things have been, that are ready to evolve, that are ready to be renewed and rebirthed. So because of the square, we may feel a lot of internal resistance or struggle or not understanding or having a fear of what comes after. We may have a fear of going into that process because we cannot see what's on the other side, and that is completely normal. We may have a fear because we think we know what is coming on the other side, and that is also normal. But that is an accumulation of the stories of the past. So right now with that moon in Scorpio, it's really about not understanding your story, but understanding how to change your emotional reactions so that you can connect on a deeper level to your actual intuition. Chiron and the North Node being so close to each other still, and in the last eclipses having been in direct conjunction, are really highlighting that this work that you're doing right now is not just a work for the month, it's not just a work for the year. This is a really, really important moment for the next years, for the whole next chapter of your life. So that doesn't make it easier, but it can help us cultivate a greater sense of dedication and maybe a little bit more patient, because understanding that such a huge process maybe also takes a bit more time. And right now we're really looking at the subtle realms of change, at the subtle realms of energy, and trying things that you have not done before on a different level, looking at a different level, searching at a different level for questions, for answers. The topic of ancestral healing right now is a really big one. It's a really important one, and we are reaching those new subtle layers in our ancestral healing. And that is why so many things are happening on the world, because we are really feeling in our bodies all of the conflicts that have never been resolved, because they have been stored inside of the muscle tissue, inside of the energy body, inside of the emotional body, inside of the physical body, inside of the structural body, inside of the geographical body of where you are. And those stories, they want and need to be met with compassion. They want and need to be met with unconditional love and understanding, so that the pains can be transformed and transmuted, so that ultimately new and different actions, and actions that are aligned with the true intuition of the present, can actually begin to play out in this lifetime. And we don't just keep repeating things because there's a loud pain that somehow wants to be noticed, but because it has been noticed, it has been held, it has been met with compassion and safety and security, and then we can begin to change. Vesta is in Cancer right now, really reminding us that we have a desire to protect our lineage, our home. We have a desire to really honor and be there and pray and be the temple guardians of our inner sanctuary and of our family sanctuaries. And we feel like we have a promise that we need to fulfill. Juno is there in sextile and really close to Lilith, in the same sign as Lilith. And it's important to acknowledge those desires, but to also realize how the story of what is actually being desired has been distorted over decades, has been distorted over centuries, has been inflated by ego, has been completely altered and manipulated. And to really go back into the true innocent heart, and really go back into the true cave, in finding your true inner pearl, and understanding what is actual the desire, what is actual sanctuary, what is actual commitment, what am I actually being loyal to, what do I want to be loyal to, and how is that serving my inner temple? And what is the story that has been told to me? And do I believe that story? And why do I believe that story? And is there another story that I also believe? And is there a story beyond the story that actually feels much more like my story? And is there a story behind all of the stories that is actually just a feeling of peace that I deeply crave and deeply desire? And slowly, step by step, coming back layer by layer and uncovering all of those manipulations and all of those distortions, and really understanding the true contract, the true royalty, what it truly means to reign over the heavens, like Juno did in the mythology of Juno as the Queen of Heavens. Juno is also square to Pallas Athena, which is in 6 degrees of Sagittarius right now, and we may have a deep desire for peace and for respect, and at the same time feel a huge internal conflict because we constantly feel a need to rise and to speak out, and a need to craft new tools to help us go beyond. We overuse our mind and our mental qualities at this time. We overthink and use our brain and use all of our air energy to try to reach beyond the horizon. And by doing that, we may feel a bit of a struggle, because it's also really important to include those waters, those deep waters. So in astrology, what we can do when we work with this more subtle realms is we can look at the asteroids and include asteroid bodies and more unknown aspects of celestial body and see things that maybe we've never looked at before. So I did this with asteroids that connect with important figures of Chiron's story. I recently visited a class about healing the centaur and was deeply inspired by looking at all of these other figures that are so very important to the Chiron story, and therefore they are important clues for us to understand our own wounding better. So I looked at the asteroid Pholus. Pholus represents not only the figure in mythology that is responsible for Chiron's wound happening, because it just initiated a whole story of chaos that ultimately led to the wounding happening. But Pholus is also interpreted in astrology as an asteroid representing a deep transformation, a point of crisis, a moment of really deeply unleashing energies that have been bottled up, that have been dormant, unleashing them, therefore causing huge chaos, but ultimately initiating a process that is essentially the whole process of Chiron, the whole story of Chiron. So this asteroid is sitting in Capricorn in 10 degrees, and it's in trine actually to the sun at the time of the full moon, which means it's sextile to the moon. What was being highlighted at this time is understanding when these emotions were initiated, a desire to understand what may have caused this, but also it's the initiation. It shows us that right now a moment of crisis may be beginning. Even though we have maybe already felt like there has been crisis happening, it doesn't mean that it will get worse. It just means that there is that a point of crisis is also being initiated right now. And that doesn't mean it has to get worse. The word crisis etymologically means that it's a decisive point in the progression of something. So we're reaching a decisive point where we are really able to change the direction, change the trajectory, because we also understand more about the origin of what is going on. Another asteroid I looked at is Nessus, and Nessus is right now in Pisces, kind of in between Mars and Saturn. And Nessus is an energy that is just really disruptive, that is just really connecting us back to our ancestral topic, and is an area of life where we really are required to be better, because Nessus in mythology did horrible things and needed to be punished for that. And it signifies a deep sense of awful things that have happened, where we have experienced betrayal, where we have experienced pain, and there's a desire to correct that. So being in between Saturn and Mars, both of which represent masculine energies, also shows us and reminds us that the way in which we deal with aspects of ourselves that are connected to leading, but also to raging and taking actions and being decisive, but also being divisive, also being limiting, also being constricting due to spiritual beliefs, is really an area right now where we are being shown that this is connected to the roots of the wounds we are experiencing and noticing right now. So this is really an important thing, that we look at those topics, but also that we meet them with an unconditional love, because it is a lack of love that has brought upon this wounding. This energy is also in sextile to what I just mentioned, the asteroid Pholus, which represents this point of initiation. So consciously choosing to recognize those connections is a really essential part of the overall bigger picture and of understanding. And it's a really important, subtle thing to do right now, is to take time to inquire about those energies. First and foremost, inside of yourself, and then in your relations, in your situations, in your family dynamics, your ancestral dynamics, your geographical dynamics, and to really understand what are the spiritual causes of certain actions that have led to such a deep disruption, and how can we find ways of unconditional love to actually neutralize those emotions, to validate them, have them being seen and heard, and ultimately being able to fulfill the core need, which is wanting and needing love. Another asteroid is Chariclo, which is Chiron's wife in mythology and is also a healer. A lot of energy of compassion, and understanding and healing through softness, through subtleness. And this asteroid is right now sitting in Aquarius. And this energy is actually in square to the conjunction right now between Uranus and Jupiter. So it really shows us that with all of this disruption, with this sudden eruption, with sudden changes, and with a need and a desire for radical innovation and for being totally different, we feel a struggle, we feel an internal tension right now to meet that with unconditional love, to meet that with calmness, with softness, to meet that with compassion. Resolving that is allowing those energies, those archetypes to actually support each other. So it might feel a bit tricky, but we have to understand that this is the path of healing. It's not about extinguishing anger. It's about being angry. It's about understanding the anger, having compassion for the anger, holding space for the anger, and becoming softer through that anger, through that process, softening to ultimately release that anger, not because we are just giving up or we are avoiding, but ultimately releasing the anger because things are changing and things have been processed. It's a process. It's not a bypassing. And that is important to differentiate. We're not bypassing our emotions. We are feeling our emotions. We are claiming our emotions. We are taking responsibility, and then we are showing accountability for our actions, for how we show up through our emotions, and understanding and meeting that and actually giving the underlying sources of the pain what it needs. And ultimately it comes back to unconditional love, understanding, listening, witnessing, being heard, and being forgiven, forgiveness. One of the hardest things to do. And another asteroid I looked at is Okyrhoe, which is in the mythology Chiron's daughter. And she was really connected to intuition, connected to prophetic gifts, and able to know things about the future that when she spoke those truths out, it made everyone so angry, she was silenced in mythology. And this energy right now is in square to Pholus. As you remember, the asteroid that shows us something about the core of when this pain was initiated. And that tells us also something about how to do the alchemical process in sextile to the moon and a trine to the sun. But there's a square right now to our prophetic gifts and our prophetic vision and how we are able to see the future. And there's the risk of being silenced and of silencing yourself, but also of silencing others who are speaking out those truths. So it's really important to understand and maybe take a moment and look and inquire, where am I wanting to silence a truth? Where am I wanting to silence? What am I wanting to silence? Where do I feel silenced? And then important to reclaim that voice, to reclaim that understanding of the necessity of speaking out certain things. It may also show us that certain dynamics may actually hinder us from speaking out more of the truth and from really living through our gifts and through our visions of what we feel and understand will happen and needs to happen, and understanding how the dynamics around us influence our ability to actually speak out in that way. So in a way, we can also be silenced without noticing it all. And what can also be silenced is our spark, our desire to live on, our desire to act. Okyrhoe is in Aries, our independence. We can start repeating what other people say. We may start repeating what whole groups of people are saying. And these dynamics, when we just go into patterns of repeating and blindly following, we are also actually silencing our own gifts, silencing our own intuition. So it's really important right now to look and understand, where did some of these points, where did some of this energy come from? What are the dynamics in place? When were they initiated? Why were they initiated? How are they influencing me and my ability to connect with my intuition, to connect with my ability to perceive and to speak out? And Okyrhoe is in sextile to Chariclo. So this shows us again that it's really important that this energy when it is being utilized, when it is being actualized, is really beneficial to also experience compassion, to also experience soft and subtle healing. And when it is not expressed, it is showing us the tensions. It is showing us how we are trying to avoid seeing some of the points of origin, where we are avoiding trying to look deeper into the ancestral realms, deeper into the subtle grounds, where we are trying to avoid something because we're stuck on a certain level of expressing. We don't dare ourselves to go deeper. We don't want to look deeper into something because that may require us to change. It may require us to change our story. It may require us to rearrange our anger. It may require us to feel certain feelings of regret or of shame or of guilt. And we don't want that because we don't understand how to transform them. But you can transform them. And you can take subtle steps, you can take small steps, and you can utilize all of the gifts that are available right now with this beautiful earth trine we have. We ask the Mother Earth right now to support us with her wisdom. We ask Mother Earth right now to support us with the plants, to support us with the volcanic eruptions, to make ground and make way for new things to flow through. We ask our bodies to support us by showing us, yes, we support the process that we're in right now. You're purging right now, you're throwing up right now, great, support it. You're having pains right now, great, support that. Support yourself in feeling. Allow yourself to sit and experience it and receive the wisdom, receive the medicine. A lot of these topics are harsh right now. A lot of these points of origins are things that we have already dealt with that we don't want to see again. But right now it's about going on a deeper level of understanding and not being afraid to look at things again, not being afraid of experiencing an emotion again, because you are not the same person. You are changed already. You have grown already. You are wiser and older, and you are already transformed. So trusting yourself and trusting your own body, your own medicine, and calling upon that, honoring that. Right now we're in this process where also Mercury with its retrograde movement, we're really looking back again, and it may feel tiring, but we're not doing the same process every time. We're actually going deeper and deeper, and we're retrieving more information, and we're cleansing, and we're purging, and we're healing, and we're neutralizing. The goal is to alchemize, not to eradicate, but to heal. And we will, with Mercury eventually stationing and then moving forwards again, passing by yet another time by Chiron, we will have a moment of peak integration of some of this April energy. This will happen on May 6th, so it's a little bit until then. So for now, let's try to be calm enough to listen to what next step will be most valuable to understand the root source of pain and anger that we experience and we witness and we notice. And then to calmly ask life to help us, to support us, and show us how can we meet those energies with the gift of compassion, of forgiveness, of unconditional love. And what do we need to get there? What do we need? Why do we need it? Discovering where there have been distortions in those feelings and those emotions in those areas. Daring to go beyond and behind the distortions, back to your true core, back to your personal and unique feeling, and then allowing a process of alchemization to happen. I think for now that's what I'm going to share about this, because it is a lot. And if you want to go deeper into understanding specific steps of what will help right now, I will be doing a tarot reading about those aspects and asking what we can do and integrate, and for the messages for this time right now, so much more specific advice. And if you want to receive that, then just subscribe and stay tuned for that video. And feel free to share about your experience. It can feel very, very healing to witness each other's struggles and pains and inspirations and insights and thoughts and ways of healing, and to learn from our different unique approaches and sensations. So yeah, if you feel inspired to share, that's such a valuable thing to do for the community, for us all, and for yourself. I thank you so much for listening. If you want to stay updated, you can join the Telegram channel. If you want to read some writings and essays, I also now have a Substack newsletter that I just started where we have a lot of different stuff going on, art, sharing writings and poetry, and also a podcast that will be coming soon. So I'd be happy if you join me over there as well. And until then, I wish you all the best, all the healing for you, your family, your lands, and for your journey. And I thank you for journeying with me. Lots of love.